President Trump announced a one-month postponement of the 25% tariffs on many Canadian imports, now set to take effect on April the 2nd. This decision came after discussions with Canadian officials and concerns from various industries. In response, Canadian Finance Minister Dominic LeBlanc stated that Canada would delay its planned second wave of retaliatory tariffs, valued at $125 billion, until April 7. The initial tariffs targeting $30 billion worth of US goods remain in effect. Among the various actions taken by different provinces, British Columbia's response stands out due to its unique position as a critical link between the US mainland and Alaska. British Columbia is set to introduce legislation that would allow the province to impose tolls on commercial vehicles traveling to Alaska in response to US President Donald Trump's tariffs. This is about sending a clear message to the president, to Alaska's Republican congressional representatives, and to the state's Republican governor, said BC Premier David Eby on Thursday. The proposed legislation would also enable BC to require that low-carbon fuel additives for gasoline and diesel be produced in Canada. Additionally, it would provide the province with new tools to eliminate internal trade barriers, as Canada seeks to lessen its dependence on the US. Despite Trump scaling back some tariffs on North American trade partners, Eby insisted that Canada should maintain its countermeasures. "We will not tolerate these ongoing threats and uncertainty. We're standing up for Canadians. This behavior is unacceptable, and we are making it clear to the US just how frustrated we are," he said. "I say we don't back down until the president takes the threat off the table." Eby noted that while he wouldn't implement the tolls immediately, and the number of affected trucks is relatively small, the move signals the growing strain between longtime allies as Canada ramps up pressure on Trump to abandon his tariff plan. "The White House has launched a trade war we never wanted, and we must respond decisively," said Premier Eby. "These initial measures are just the beginning. In the coming weeks, we will introduce additional tools to safeguard our economy against this sustained economic aggression." The BC government plans to introduce tariff response legislation in the coming days, equipping the province with new mechanisms to protect jobs, businesses, and swiftly address challenges stemming from Trump's trade war. Proposed measures include removing interprovincial trade barriers to strengthen BC's internal economy, mandating that low-carbon fuel additives for gasoline and diesel be sourced within Canada, and implementing tolls or fees on US commercial vehicles using BC infrastructure to reach Alaska. These tariffs are a serious misstep by Trump's administration, hurting families and businesses on both sides of the border. Premier Eby added, "Our government will fight for British Columbians every step of the way, and every option remains on the table." As an immediate response, the province has directed the BC Liquor Distribution Branch to halt purchases of American liquor from red states, removing those brands from public liquor store shelves. Additionally, BC government agencies and Crown corporations have been instructed to prioritise Canadian goods and services. These actions are part of a broader Team Canada approach, which includes the federal government's 25% tariffs on $155 billion worth of US imports, alongside countermeasures from other provinces and territories, to reduce reliance on US trade. BC is aggressively pursuing new markets and accelerating approvals for major investment projects. The initial wave of projects, valued at $20 billion, will create an estimated 8,000 jobs, particularly benefiting rural and remote communities. To ensure a coordinated and effective response, Premier Eby has established a Trade and Economic Security Task Force, bringing together leaders from business, labour, and Indigenous communities. Additionally, a task force on agriculture and the food economy will work to safeguard BC's food supply. ABC Softwood Advisory Council is also developing a diplomatic and trade strategy to defend BC's interests in the ongoing softwood lumber dispute. A newly formed Cabinet Committee will oversee the government's comprehensive response. With these measures, British Columbia is taking bold steps to protect its economy, workers, and businesses from the impact of US tariffs, while strengthening trade and economic resilience for the future. Canada plays a crucial role in connecting Alaska to the rest of the United States, as Alaska is a geographical exclave, meaning it is not directly connected to the contiguous US by land. The vast Canadian territory between Alaska and the rest of the United States serves as a necessary link. One of the most significant connections between Alaska and the lower 48 states is the Alaska Highway, also known as the Alcan Highway. This vital roadway stretches from Dawson Creek in British Columbia, Canada, to Delta Junction, Alaska, constructed during World War II to provide a secure supply route for military operations. The highway remains the primary overland connection between Alaska and the rest of the US. Despite improvements over the decades, much of the route still passes through rugged and remote landscapes, requiring travellers to drive through several hundred miles of Canadian territory before reaching Alaska. Beyond road transportation, air travel also relies heavily on Canada's geographical position, as many flights between Alaska and other US states pass through Canadian airspace, with some even making stops in Canadian cities. Canada's air traffic control system plays an essential role in managing the movement of aircraft traveling between Alaska and destinations across the United States. The cooperation between American and Canadian aviation authorities ensures the smooth operation of these air routes. Trade and commerce further emphasize Canada's role in linking Alaska with the US. Although there is no direct railway connecting Alaska to the lower 48 states, rail and freight services frequently transport goods through Canada. The Port of Vancouver in British Columbia is a major transit hub for shipments moving to and from Alaska. Many essential supplies, including food, fuel, and construction materials, are transported through Canadian ports and railways before reaching their final destinations in Alaska. For those traveling between Alaska and the contiguous United States by car or truck, crossing the Canadian border is unavoidable. The United States and Canada maintain close diplomatic relations that facilitate relatively easy border crossings, particularly for trade, tourism, and personal travel. However, travellers must adhere to Canadian customs and immigration regulations to ensure their documentation is in order before passing through the country. Another key aspect of the connection between Alaska and the rest of the US through Canada is energy infrastructure. Alaska is rich in natural resources, particularly oil and natural gas, and Canada provides crucial transit routes for these resources to reach American and international markets. Pipelines and shipping routes allow the transportation of Alaskan energy products through Canada, supporting both the US economy and global energy demands. Alaska maintains a strong economic and logistical relationship with Canada, playing a crucial role in trade, transportation, and connectivity. The exchange of goods between Alaska and Canada is significant, with over $1 billion worth of trade occurring annually. Of this, approximately $596 million is exported from Alaska to Canada, while $753 million in goods are imported into Alaska from Canada. This trade supports industries such as energy, seafood, and manufacturing, ensuring a steady flow of essential commodities between the two regions. In addition to land-based transportation, marine shipping plays a vital role in the movement of goods and people between Alaska and Canada. The Inside Passage, a scenic and strategically important coastal waterway, connects southeastern Alaska with British Columbia. This route is heavily utilized for commercial shipping, tourism, and passenger travel. Regular ferry operations, including those managed by the Alaska Marine Highway System and BC Ferries, facilitate transportation between Alaskan and Canadian coastal communities. These ferry services not only enhance trade, but also provide a crucial link for residents, particularly in remote regions where road access is limited. Premier Danielle Smith urged residents to support Canadian businesses, labeling the tariffs as an unjustifiable economic attack and warning that they would backfire on both nations, causing price increases and job losses. She supported the federal government's countermeasures and announced that Alberta would unveil its own retaliatory actions within 24 hours. Smith called for national unity, urging all provinces to remove internal trade barriers and prioritize key resource projects, such as pipelines and LNG facilities. She also emphasized the need for Canada to strengthen global trade ties and bolster national defense spending in an increasingly volatile world. Premier Wab Kinew quickly announced that all American alcohol would be removed from Manitoba liquor marts as part of the province's commitment to retaliatory measures. Newfoundland and Labrador. Premier Andrew Furey denounced the tariffs as illegal and unjust, taking immediate actions like removing US products from Liquor Corporation shelves, halting procurement of US goods and services, and expanding market opportunities beyond the US, particularly in Europe. Furey also announced the creation of a roundtable on Canada-US trade relations to strategize further responses, and called for Canadian unity, emphasizing that Canada's identity, values, and sovereignty would guide the country through this economic conflict. Canada is accelerating efforts to diversify away from the US market to reduce vulnerability, building on existing free trade agreements like the CPTPP and CETA. Ottawa is encouraging businesses to pivot exports to Europe, Asia, and Latin America, offering grants and financing to help industries adapt. Provinces are focusing on new markets, with British Columbia fast-tracking projects and seeking overseas customers, while Atlantic provinces are expanding seafood sales to Europe. Despite proximity and long-standing ties, making the US a natural partner, persistent tariff threats have spurred a national resolve to find alternatives. Canada already has preferential deals with the EU, many Asia-Pacific countries, and various Latin American nations, and officials are encouraging companies to use these agreements to replace lost US sales, hoping that increased exports to Japan, Europe, or other markets can offset some of the shortfall. Talks with India and other emerging economies could open additional opportunities. Canada also aims to deepen ties with Mexico and other CPTPP members to create a broader free trade ecosystem that excludes the US, or at least lessens dependency on it. Canadian manufacturers and agricultural producers are reallocating resources, seeking alternate inputs, and exploring new export channels. Retailers are substituting US goods with products from Canada or overseas. While this transition may take time, the current tariffs have created urgency. Long-standing trade frictions between the United States and Canada are not new. The two allies have weathered numerous disputes over the decades, with one of the most enduring being the softwood lumber conflict, which began in 1982 and persists today. The US lumber industry has long accused Canada of unfair subsidies and imposed countervailing duties, while Canada vehemently disputes those claims. This lumber war has seen multiple rounds of tariffs, legal battles, and temporary agreements, making it one of the largest and most enduring trade disputes in bilateral history. Other perennial flashpoints include Canadian dairy quotas versus US access demands, and American country of origin labeling rules for meat, which were eventually overturned via a WTO challenge. Past US administrations have occasionally imposed tariffs on Canadian goods, often provoking retaliation and eventual compromise. In 1930, the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act raised US duties on thousands of imports, and Canada, then America's largest trading partner, was among the first to retaliate, hiking tariffs on 16 categories of US goods, resulting in mutual economic pain and a collapse in trade. In 1971, President Nixon temporarily imposed a 10% surcharge on imports, including Canadian goods, during a currency crisis, which strained relations until a monetary deal led to its removal within months. In 2002, President George W. Bush levied tariffs up to 30% on foreign steel, but Canada and Mexico were exempted due to NAFTA obligations. The steel tariffs were eventually withdrawn after global retaliation threats and a WTO ruling against them. The episode demonstrated that broad US tariffs often face fierce pushback. The 2018-2019 period under President Trump saw major tariffs imposed on steel and aluminum, citing national security, and Canada responded,